Hello and welcome to More Than a Game. My name is Tommie C. I'm joined this week by George. Welcome to the show, mate. Great to have you back on board.
Good to be back, mate. Good to be back.
Been a big week for Chelsea fans. Lots of goals, not many conceded. Been a lot of fun, I imagine.
Yeah, mate. It's good times. How many is that? 11 goals in 2 games. So, or maybe
11-2,
more.
none conceded.
I think
Yeah.
I went to the Malmo game, so it was good fun. It was good fun
Mate,
just to watch
these humble brags.
Just Jorginho banging a few penalties.
Just a hop, skip, and a jump down the road for you, isn't it?
Very good. Always
very good.
All
right, mate. Let's crack into to the football. We've got plenty to discuss this week. This week on the pod, we're going to be covering comebacks make a comeback in the Premier League, Champions League, the Tillies, and of course us to the pub in Melbourne. We also discuss what's the point of Norwich, and Steve Bruce's managerial reign at Newcastle is the next casualty of the Saudi regime. So, alrighty, mate. What's your moment of the week though?
My moment of the week, Tommie, is going in midweek, the Champions League. Not the Chelsea Malmo game I referred to earlier. No, it was the Liverpool Atletico game, which was an absolute cracker. And just honing in on old mate Antoine Griezmann, who's been absolutely awful for about, I don't know, ever since he went to Barcelona and then came back to Atletico, in that strange transfer at the start of the season, banging in 2 goals. So, good stuff. Oh yeah, also he did get a red card. So scored 2 and got a red card. So I do love that when a guy sort of who's been much maligned comes back. Breaks the. I think he'd only scored 1 for Atletico since returning, and then goes and sticks his boot in the air and clocks Fabinho in the head. So
needless as well.
Yeah, I think he was probably just pumped up because he was, in the mix, and probably cost them the game, notwithstanding the late penalty shout that was revoked as well. Yeah. So yeah, it was just an awesome game, and one of those Champions League games that you really enjoy watching. Liverpool taking the lead, and then Atletico coming roaring back, and then Salah the clutch penalty, and then a penalty reversed at the end for seemingly similar sort of foul. I don't know whether you saw it, Tommie, but it was an exciting game. So yeah, that's going to be tough to beat.
And I mean, like the Liverpool penalty, we'll talk about this a little bit more a little bit later in the Champions League segment. But this that penalty was a pretty stone cold, or like pretty clear cut penalty. So I think Griezmann in the sheds would have been pretty disappointed by his teammates, and obviously they probably would have been pretty disappointed about him as well. But yeah, anyways, mate, it was a cracker of a game. So good moment of the week. For me, look, I'm going to take some liberties here with George being in the UK. It meant that, mate, you don't get a chance to, well, you didn't get a chance to watch the Matildas last night. So I'm just going to freestyle here and talk a little bit about how much I enjoyed just the whole evening last night of, first of all, the Matildas, but also being in the pub and being able to watch with some mates. That was good too. So Matildas, they're the big comeback of this week. First of all, obviously Matildas are on TV now. They were on the main channel 10. There was 15,000 people at Combank Stadium, so like would have been pumping. Plenty of Brazilian expats in the crowd as well, with the drums and the horns and stuff. There's plenty of dancing on TV and stuff as well. So
you would have been conflicted, Tommie.
Oh, mate, I was getting pretty dark, greasy looks from my fiance across the table as well. I got to say, she was not real happy when they went down, and obviously thought, oh, she could be in with a chance here when Brazil scored. But yeah, just really good result, and also a really good performance from the Matildas as well. So that also, I guess, added to the evening. Couple of great goals from Claire Polkinghorne, who poked one home at the far post. Mary Fowler, and obviously West Ham's Emily Van Egmond all capped off a really strong performance against the Selecao Feminina. There's a couple of debuts as well for Remy Simpson and Briley Henry. So great news as well that in the coming years there's going to be plenty more Matildas coming on off the conveyor belt, which is great news. And look, whilst the game was great atmosphere, the other thing I thought was really good about this was I thought Channel 10's coverage as well was bang on. You had Simon Hill, Tara Rushton's joined the team now, so she's going to be working on the dub and maybe the Isuzu Ute A-League as well this year. Mate, what do you think about that? About the name of
I love it. I love it. Couldn't be a more appropriate sponsor if they tried.
I know, right? But as I was saying, Tara's joined the team as well, so that's great. And look, I did catch today that it actually rated pretty well as well. It was the second highest rating show on free to air TV last night. Not that ratings really mean that much anymore with streaming services and all of the sort of secondary channels as well. But it rated highest after Grantchester, which is a show I've never heard of, but apparently it was the top rating show on Saturday night on the ABC. So, good news for the Matildas. Good news to Channel 10 that they've seen a little bit of a return already on investing in football, which obviously we want football to be a success on Channel 10, but it needs to be a success so that they're going to be likely to continue to invest in the game over the next couple of years.
And obviously bad news for Grantchester as well. So,
mate, they're going to be absolutely spewing. I reckon they're going to be pushing shit uphill on Tuesday night when the Matildas play Brazil again to get the top ratings again. So look out, Grantchester, whatever you are.
Excellent.
Made a couple other shout outs as well. Channel 10 and Paramount Plus announced that they secured the rights to the FA Cup, so they're going to be showing that, I believe, all rounds from December onwards, which is fantastic. Don't always get to see all of those games here in Australia, and it does also, I guess, point to Paramount Plus putting in a big bid for the Premier League rights when they come up in November for next season's rights and onwards.
Oh wow.
And finally, I know I've taken a lot of liberties here when it comes to moment of the week, but do just want to have a shout out to A-League Villa, who reminded us that Western United are expecting to break ground tomorrow at Tarneet on their new stadium. So, look, much maligned that whole bid, and some people said that they'd lied, the fact that they couldn't build a stadium in a pandemic. But look, it does appear as though they're finally going to be making some real concrete progress this week. So that's fantastic as well. So
you sure they're not just building apartments there, Tommie? I think someone should go down and have a look, because I'm still skeptical about this. But yeah, so.
Right. Look, and I understand the skepticism. It's taken far too long for them to get to this point where they're going to be breaking ground. But look, I mean, they will probably just exactly. There's a ready-made excuse in that there was a global pandemic on. So
yeah.
Alrighty, mate. Back to I guess the regular scheduling though. Did you have an own goal this week?
Yeah, I had a couple. For you, Tommie. One was in the Chelsea Malmo game with Romelu Lukaku, I think, going over on his ankle. You know, everyone's like, okay, now it's Timo time. Mm-hmm. So what does Timo do? He goes and pulls his hammy. So he misses the rest of the Malmo game. Mind you, he'd missed a couple of chances in that game as well in the first 15 minutes before he was injured. And then, he's missed the Norwich game. So poor Timo,
Just the king of missing easy opportunities, and now he's missing games while Romelu's out injured. So.
Yeah. So I thought that was quite funny and ironic. And then back to the Premier League yesterday, the Everton Watford game. So how on earth did Everton go from 2-1 up to 5-2 in the end, and former player who didn't get a run with Everton last year, Josh King, bagging a pretty decent hat-trick. So yeah, Everton shitting the bed a little bit there. So
mate, that was the best shitting the bed, or the best comeback since Villa 2 weeks ago, or last week against Wolves. So it's been a while. We've been a little bit spoiled, I guess, for good comebacks recently.
About you, Tommie?
For me, my own goal this week, look, I found it a little bit tough. So I had to sort of shoehorn some good news and turn it into an own goal, and that was that Channel 10. I've given them some big props this week, but they did they've unveiled sort of one of their new A-League ads this week, which I think everyone was sort of a little bit nervous whenever there's sort of a new broadcast or something like that comes on board. However, this Channel 10 A-Leagues ad, it's just it really hits the mark. It's
They haven't gone with the paint, the paint and the original one with the soccer ball and the paint and the juggling.
No, look, it's hard to beat that. That's still the OG GOAT A-League ad for me. No Scribe as well, or New Zealand hip hop, but I can't remember the name of the song. But anyone who's seen the ad, all I can hear when I hear the music is you when I hear the music in the background, and I just think that Azusa Utes, they've just got to be so pleased with the choice of music. So the own goal out of all of this though is that whilst the ad's great, some people seem to just try to find a negative anywhere they can, and with this, people seem to be displeased that for people, well, I'm sure everyone who follows the pod has seen the ad, and in the ad there's a bunch of different supporters from different teams, and they're sort of showing their colours and flying flags, and I think there's even some flares and stuff like that. But some of those scenes weren't necessarily filmed in their respective cities. So there's like some Western United fans, and that was filmed in Brisbane, and I actually believe that all of the footage is filmed in Brisbane. So it's just like, well, first of all, there's a pandemic, and you can't fly people around the country filming stuff. And secondly, does it matter where it's filmed? Who cares? It's a good ad.
Has anyone watched Hollywood? I mean, you guys probably haven't been to the cinemas in a while, but like 99% of the movie. Yeah, sorry, 99% of the movie filmed in front of a green screen or in bloody Atlanta or somewhere in America, and trying to be somewhere else. So
yeah, mate,
just get off the high horse, people, and just get with the program.
It's just really disappointing for me. But what's a really positive moment, I think, is that like Channel 10, they're really pushing the A-Leagues at the moment. There's plenty of cross promotion. You got Archie Thompson on Celebrity MasterChef, and they're just doing everything that we hoped that they would do. So that's really positive, and just a shame that people tried to manage to find a negative in it somewhere.
Can we get a Celebrity MasterChef update, Tommy? Just for those who haven't been following.
Oh, mate. Destruction in the Box, they've been doing sort of updates and sort of summaries, video summaries of how Archie's been going. And probably the pick of that was that Archie Thompson cooked KFC on there one night. That was pretty amusing. But I mean, there was sort of a bit of a heartfelt story that goes along with that. He said that like he comes from like a not particularly well-off background, and I can't remember if he said his mum was a single mum at the time, but didn't have a lot of money. And so they getting KFC on like Sunday nights, that was a big deal. And so he basically cooked fried chicken as sort of an homage to his mum, which that was nice, but still cooking fried chicken on Celebrity MasterChef is kind of funny still, though.
Standards not as high as maybe previous seasons. But
yeah. All right, mate. A few other news tidbits from around the place this week. As I mentioned at the top, Newcastle, they've not really sacked Steve Bruce. I think it was actually by mutual agreement.
Definitely sacked him.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. But anyway, Steve Bruce has left Newcastle. They haven't announced a successor to Steve Bruce. It does seem like Fonseca's going to be coming in. He was at Roma for a while. He was at Shakhtar for a while. He was even in competition with Manuel Pellegrini to succeed who would have been David Moyes the first time round at West Ham. So, and then there's been sort of the joke candidate, which is Eddie Howe. So, very interesting to see
Lampard's name was in the mix as well. I don't know.
Oh, geez, I think Eddie Howe's a more credible option for Newcastle than Lampard is. I mean, Lampard showed that he was well and truly out of his depth in the Premier League.
What do you mean? He made top 4 1 year. It's more than Eddie Howe's ever done.
Yeah, but Eddie Howe didn't have the Chelsea squad at his disposal. But mate, would you like to see Lampard go into Newcastle, or Gerrard's the other one that's been mentioned? He's obviously done really well with Rangers.
I think Gerrard actually is a really good shout, because he's done the apprenticeship at Rangers. He's won it all in Scotland. And if they're going to be backing him financially, then yeah, there's a bit of pressure there, but there's a lot of pressure at Rangers, so I think it's a good call. But I mean, you never know with the new owners and whether they want a more continental type manager.
This is almost a bit of a poison chalice, I think, whoever takes on this role, because they know that this person isn't going to be there for a long time. The job for this person is to integrate some new signings who are likely to be quite a bit different in terms of quality and wages than some of the other players that are currently in the squad. And obviously to, I think, sort of change the playing style a little bit after Steve Bruce and Rafa Benitez the last couple of years. So I think it's a really difficult job, and they're probably not expecting a hell of a lot, and they're probably not expecting them to actually hang around for very long. I reckon the person who fills that job will be lucky to still be there at the end of next season. So more than 18 months, I don't think they'll last.
Yeah, but I think it's a free hit for this season, because all they have to do is get them out of relegation, the relegation spot, I think, because they're going to struggle to look at their points tally at the moment. Like, they're going to struggle to make the top half. Like, they'd have to have an absolutely smashing 6 months to even make it into the top 10. So
true, but then I think they're going to be in a very similar situation to, say, like, I think it was Mark Hughes at City after those the big takeovers that they had.
Well, all Lampard, Tommie, where Chelsea spent nearly 300 million the second season he was in. And he didn't seem to manage the new guys coming in, and the performances dipped when instead he was actually playing okay when he had to play, with the squad he'd received. And similar, yeah, you're right, Mark Hughes as well. It didn't take long for them to get Mancini in, but I think that's a different case, because Hughes was a good manager, but he's UK based, and then the new ownership came in and they wanted something different, and they wanted a bigger name. So. Yeah,
I can't remember where Ericsson fit into that whole timeline as well, but
he was when the Thai ownership was in place.
So he was before Hughes.
Yeah. I think
Bloody
so.
hell, this is really racking my memory at the moment.
Dodgy Thai
owner. Mate, speaking of dodgy Thai, I had a pad Thai tonight, and it was just way too spicy. Just didn't hit the hit the
sweating. But for those listening on the pod, there's you can see the droplets of sweat coming off Tommie's forehead. So if he needs to excuse himself for a minute and you don't hear him on the pod, you know where he is.
Those with a keen ear on the pod would be pretty used to hearing the opening of a can at the beginning of a pod. Not this week. It's instead of a beer, it's a kombucha. So
I think that
just hits different.
Definitely. I prefer the dodgy pad Thai.
All right, let's one other thing, sorry, on the topic of Steve Bruce, is that there was a bit of a sad quote that was doing the rounds in the last couple of days from Steve Bruce to Luke Edwards-Steele, who I assume is a journo. Steve Bruce said, "I think this might be my last job. It's been very, very tough. To never really be wanted, to feel that people wanted me to fail and saying I would fail, that I was useless, a fat waste of space, and a tactically inept cabbage head." It was a bit of a sad quote, I guess, and a bit of a sad indictment to, like you say, how he was treated. Like I was one of those people that thought that Steve Bruce would fail. I never got the impression that he was a bad guy. I never got the impression that he was. I always got the impression that he probably deserved better. But I think Newcastle fans were always a little bit harsh on Steve Bruce, because he was a bit of a totem for the Mike Ashley sort of anger around the club as well. So
just on that, Tommie, though, I don't know whether you saw it. Not to labour the point, but the Sky Sports had this interesting stat about Steve Bruce versus Rafa Benitez after 2 seasons. So I'll read them out really quickly. So so 2 full seasons each, total points over the 2 seasons, both having 90 points. Bruce having 23 wins, Rafa having 24 wins. Goals scored, Bruce 84, Rafa 81. Goals conceded, Bruce 120. Rafa 95, possession 38, Rafa 40. So very, very similar records over 2 seasons. And I think that sort of summarises how the perception was with Bruce versus Rafa, when in fact the results were largely similar.
And I mean, there was no real investment in. Well, I guess there was a little bit of investment. They got some Maximum and Joe Linton, aka Joe Ellington. So it was. I guess it was just a disappointing period, I think, for a lot of Newcastle fans, and they'd just be happy to move on. We talked, I think, a little bit last week about the sports washing aspect, and obviously the Steve Bruce aspect of that doesn't really fade in, doesn't really play into that a hell of a lot. But I know a lot of people will just be interested to see how this pans out from a footballing perspective as to who he's replaced by, who that new manager signs in January, and we know that they're going to sign players,
and
right?
how much they can actually spend, because apparently the clubs have blocked the Saudis making direct sponsorships through the club, so that might impact some of the spending power initially, anyway. Because I think it's a temporary measure, but
well, that's it. I mean, where there's a will, there's a way, right? Like they will find a way, and they will find a way to funnel money into the club, right? But it's like you say, it's going to be very interesting to see how that pans out, and whether or not they try to make that almost a little bit more of a permanent arrangement, and how difficult they make it for them.
Yep.
Excuse me. But the one other piece of news was that that's come out today is that it looks like the A Leagues they're looking towards finalising a sale of 30% of the rights of the competition. So something in the region of $130 million is likely to be raised through the sale of through this equity sale of the A Leagues, which is an incredible opportunity for the competitions to be able to, I guess, maybe try and sort of finalise some of the infrastructure that's around the competition that's maybe gone a little bit stale. I know that they've been talking about building like a big digital hub, and things like apps and stuff like that do cost money. That there are investments in sort of the architecture for the competition, but aren't sort of regular day-to-day expenses, so that things like sort of marketing campaigns and stuff like that. I really hope that 130 million doesn't go towards things like that, but there is some infrastructure that does need to be built around the competitions to, I guess, help them really go from strength to strength and capitalize on, I guess, like I was saying before, that investment that Channel 10 are putting into the A Leagues and Matildas and Socceroos at the moment. I think
I was going to say you've seen similar things sort of discussed at Serie A level and La Liga level, where private equity are putting money in and getting a stake in the rights to the leagues, and then they'll probably take a return out of some of the next wave of TV rights money and the like. So it looks like it's actually the way forward for football. I don't know whether it's an amazing thing or not. It's only 30%, so they're not going to have a huge stake in things and decision making and the like. But obviously the investment is required, notwithstanding the money that's been pumped in through Channel 10 and Paramount.
I guess at this point, it's a little bit hard to know sort of what the risks are for the competition, because, like, I mean, with a 30% stake, you don't really have that much influence on how the league is run. You obviously don't have a controlling stake, so you can't take on huge aspects of control. But yeah, and I guess I feel like maybe not the next 12 months or even the next 24 months, but I feel like in the third and fourth year of this, we might start to see more influence from this investment firm, where they're called Silver Lake, I think they are. So it'd be very, very interesting to see how that all pans out, and very interesting to see how they spend the money too. So, yeah. All right, now on to the Premier League. So the year is 2030. Newcastle have just won their third successive Premier League title. Real Madrid have just won their fifth European Super League. Mbappe is the top scorer. Melbourne is leaving its most recent COVID-19 lockdown after another strain has been found. Meanwhile, Norwich have just been relegated from the Premier League after failing to score a goal in the final 15 rounds. They've alternated between relegation and topping the championship for the past 8 years. Look, that's I guess possibly how things could pan out over the next sort of 10 years. But and obviously it's not real life. But after the 7-0 loss to Chelsea overnight, you've got to ask yourself, what is the point of Norwich right now? Because they're just clogging up the league. And honestly, they were terrible last night, and probably one of the worst performances I've seen in the Premier League for quite some time.
Yeah, it was pretty embarrassing. And so Damo sent us the stats. So Norwich have 2 goals from 9 games, 23 against. And, he was saying it's already looking worse than the last record-breaking campaign. So, yeah, they just lined up, and it just didn't look like they had a hope, to be honest. And, you were just waiting for the floodgates to open. And when they eventually did, it just looked easy. And, Chelsea didn't have their front line in, Kai Havertz was leading the line with Hudson-Odoi on the wing, and and Mason Mount as well, who was really good. But it was just Norwich just weren't good enough, and they're not good enough for the Premier League. And it's weird because they seem to manage to bounce straight up in the Championship, and they're probably too good for the Championship, but then they don't invest. And the golf,
mate, their team is worse than it was last year in the Championship. Like they sold Buendia, which was probably the right thing to do. But I mean, the players that have come in Sargent and I think it's Rashika, they're just not equal quality. And
there's a Greek guy on the wing, I think, as well. They brought in, but exactly.
And Pookie doesn't seem to be the same player that he was 2 years ago either. He just he's had less chances, and when a player like him, I think, has less chances, it's inevitably going to lead to less goals as well.
Yeah, ultimately, you can't come into the Premier League, not spend any money, weaken your team, and look how much money's flowing in the Premier League the last 5 years. Like if you're not coming up and investing, you're going to get smashed, and lo and behold, they're getting smashed. And they're sometimes they perform admirably, but ultimately, like they're not going to collect the points to stay up, and they're going to be relegated, before Christmas.
I think Villa showed how difficult it can be when you sell sort of a real talismanic player like Grealish or in Norwich's case, Buendia, and that it can be really difficult to sort of bounce back from that and try to and encourage sort of some of the existing players or the new players to step up and sort of fill the breach. But Norwich don't have the other players around them of a similar quality in the sense that Villa do. So it's just
Villa also signed like 7 other players as well to replace Grealish.
I guess my point is that like they had a better squad to begin with, right? And then Norwich, who were probably more reliant on someone like Buendia, now just like they're not creating chances, they're not scoring the chances that they do get, they're just leaking goals like a sieve, like they're defensively ill-disciplined, with Ben Gibson getting 2 yellow cards and getting sent off, and it's just, I mean, it's hard to find any positives from that whole performance last night. It was just really disappointing. And I mean, probably the scariest thing is, I think there is some sort of inevitability that they will beat someone this year at some point, and you just hope that it's not your team.
Yeah, there's going to be that one game where your team gets a red card or a major injury, and Norwich capitalise. But yeah, I'm glad Chelsea put them to the sword, and they're at the bottom of the table, and that's where they belong.
Just before he left my place last night at about 3:00, Damo and I were discussing about Daniel Farke and how he's managed to hang around at Norwich for so long. I think a lot of people were probably surprised to some degree that he managed to survive their last campaign, and obviously he took them straight back up to the Premier League. So he did show that he was able to sort of get the team to bounce back and keep them competitive and get them back into the Premier League as soon as possible. But I mean, I don't really understand how they can have similarly poor results in 2 Premier League campaigns, and the manager seems to be under no pressure at all.
I think that's just coming from the top. That's the club has no ambition to stay in the Premier League. So and then they know the manager can get them out of the Championship, so they don't care. They're just collecting the Premier League money. They're collecting the parachute payment, pocketing it with minimal investment, and then they know Farke can get them back into the Premier League, and it's the formula they're repeating. And they're not going to. They probably won't sack him. No, and it's what would be the point? They know coming into the start of the Premier League season they're getting relegated. So why would there be pressure? Like, just go out there and have a go and score some goals or play some nice football, even though they're probably not. That's probably the mission. And coming. You can't realistically expect them to stay up when they've lost a couple of players and there's been zero other investment. So
I guess the one real opportunity for Norwich this year was that maybe Brendan Williams, the on loan Manchester United fullback, that maybe he would sort of come good and that he would sort of maybe be a bit of a shining light for them, and that sort of at least Manchester United might have won sort of somehow out of Norwich's season. But even Brandon Williams is sort of, it's hard to be good as a young player in a team that's performing as badly as Norwich are right now and getting results that Norwich are right now. So just a really, really tough situation and hard to find any positives out of it, I guess, at the moment. Mate, thanks for humouring me and talking about Norwich for a little while, though, especially when Chelsea are obviously red hot at the moment. But look, as we mentioned at the top, 11 goals, none conceded this week. It's obviously pretty good, but how happy were you with the performance of Chelsea, though?
Yeah, the key players I thought were Mount and Callum Hudson-Odoi, who looked really, really good. Mount finally scoring. I think it had been over 20 games since his last goal, and he managed to get a hat-trick, even though one of them was a retaken penalty after Tim Krul saved. The master of the dark arts and penalties, Tim Krul, managed to save the first one and then nearly managed to save the second one. But I was really Reece James looked really good as well, and good to see him back in the starting lineup. And Mount and Hudson-Odoi looking the goods. And when Hudson-Odoi has a head of steam and he's full of confidence and injury free, you get to see these glimpses of a guy that could be really, really good. He just needs to obviously keep playing and not get injured and manage his consistency. And Mount's looking good as well after probably being overplayed. And to be honest, he played every game for 2 years and played with England and that sort of thing. So, it was going to be difficult for him to maintain the level. So a good win and Kai Havertz can do the job playing as the false nine or the sort of floating target man. And as long as the guys get around him and support him and make forward runs, then he can play quite well in that position. So there's also an international break and coming up in a few weeks as well. So hopefully one of Werner and Lukaku come back to help with that depth going in the forward line. But yeah, I thought I'd probably single out Hudson-Odoi and Mount looking really good.
One, I guess any game where Hudson-Odoi gets any significant time on the pitch is good, but just a shame, I guess. I don't know how you feel about this, but a bit of a shame. I thought that he didn't end up leaving Chelsea on loan to get, I guess, more solid minutes under his belt this season. But
yeah, I think that's fair. But then you see Ziyech getting injured, Pulisic always injured, so he's gonna actually get game time as well. So, and it's good to see him and Loftus-Cheek after all these years back in the starting lineup. Well, Loftus-Cheek was on the bench, but he's played quite a few games this season, more than you'd expect. So yeah, it's cool. I think they've just got to play consistent football and they've got to not be injured. And
that has really surprised me that Loftus-Cheek has actually played quite a bit this season. I think a lot of people wouldn't have been surprised if he had gone out on loan again this year, but it seems as though he's hung around. Either they couldn't find a loan option for him or no one was willing to pay the fee that Chelsea want for him. But it is looking like he probably won't end up leaving Chelsea.
No,
because
if he's fit and firing, he's almost He's almost unplayable. Like he's a huge unit. He's got excellent touch. He can drive the ball forward and find a pass. It's just the only thing that's held him back was when he's been injured, and he's had some bad injuries. I think he did his Achilles in America that time that they were on that America tour, the stupid game in the middle of the season. I think Sarri was the manager then. That probably set him back 18 months because he's a big unit, and to snap your Achilles is not good, and especially when you're that big and you're that powerful. So
it's all Sarri's fault.
No, it's Chelsea's fault for going to America and playing on some substandard pitch. So anyway, yeah, don't get me started.
Sorry, mate. It sounds like you'd only just gotten over that. All right, good stuff for Chelsea though. They that result takes them top of the league. I think Liverpool can leapfrog them though if they beat Manchester United tonight though. Next up, Everton, they hosted Watford in what seemed probably for the first hour to looked like it was going to end up being a pretty regulation win for Everton. They're up 2-1, but look, pretty massive comeback in the end. George, Manchester United in the 99 Champions League final, Barcelona versus PSG, Champions League quarters 2017, West Ham versus Spurs last season, Wolves versus Villa last week. Where does this rate in sort of like the all-time comebacks?
I'd probably have it on par with the United Champions League final. Yeah, it was that good. It was that good. No, not
there
was
one thing that.
Yeah.
There's one thing they had in common. It was that they were unexpected. I don't think anyone would have expected this, not just the comeback, but just the utter capitulation that Everton displayed as well. Because they had been quite good for most of this season, but everything seemed to really sort of come falling apart in that final 20 minutes of.
Yeah, well, I think that the equalising goal was in the 78th minute. So that Everton were 2-1 up till the 78th minute, and then they've conceded four in a row. So yeah, and it's unlikely. It's a really unlikely result given you've got Rafa Benitez managing Everton, who usually builds from the back and secures a lead and can manage a result. So.
How much do you think of this result could be put down to the massive list of players missing from Everton at the moment?
Some of it, I think, but also like not a huge amount of players were missing defensively, and they were in the lead. So I think when you're in the 77th minute and leading a game 2-1, no matter who you're playing with, you wouldn't expect to concede another 4 goals, right?
No, and like who is missing and how their influence has changed this squad over the past few weeks has been quite key. I think like Decore, he's the latest player to get injured, and I think you could put a lot of this down to some of his influence. He's been a very, very tidy player for them so far this season, and to be losing him in that final 20 minutes of this game,
it's no coincidence.
Yeah, I totally agree. One player who would have been very happy with the result was Claudio Ranieri. How long do you think the new manager bounce is going to last for him?
You never really know with Watford at all. So yeah, I wouldn't even bother guessing. I have no idea. Like it could be 1 week, it could be 3. It probably won't be the full season, Tommy.
George, I'd just like to remind you that we are still a Watford podcast.
All right. Yeah. Well, they're pushing for top 4 then. Why not?
I think Andy was the original one who was really around Watford. And I think it was Decore that actually was sort of what the big catalyst for that. Him and Capoue. So yeah, we have to roll the tapes.
On to bigger and better things.
Yeah, all right. Let's keep moving though. Brighton, they hosted City. And I thought this should have been probably the big match of the weekend, at least for Saturday night, with obviously with Manchester United playing Liverpool tonight. That's probably the match of the round overall, though. But City were at their imperious best as they displayed a counter-attacking masterclass against Brighton. A Gundogan goal and 2 from Phil Foden inside the first 30 minutes meant that it was always going to be difficult for Brighton to come back. They did manage to get one back through Alexis McAllister from the penalty spot after Enoch Mwepu. I think that's the computer, isn't it? was fouled by Edison. But Mahrez did make the points certain for City late on with a 4th for City. Result does mean that there's a little bit of clear air developing between Chelsea, City, Liverpool, and the rest now. But I think Spurs, they can sort of stay in touching distance as well if they get a result against West Ham. We'll talk about that game a little bit later as well. 2
things from this game, I'd say, Tommy. Probably the best goal line clearance I've seen in a while. I can't remember if I think it was Dunk or one of Duffy or Dunk. I can't remember, but
I would think it would have been Dunk because I don't think Duffy played. He was in my fantasy team.
Yeah. So Dunk with an amazing goal line clearance. I couldn't believe. Phil Foden couldn't believe it hadn't crossed the line. So, and the other one was Brighton's goalkeeper Sanchez just having a bit of a mare. So for the Matty Ryan fans out there, Colby, one for you.
Very good. I'm sure all the Aussies loved that, especially while Matty Ryan's not playing at all at Real Sociedad. Arsenal wound back the clock a little bit on Saturday morning, not because of daylight savings, but because they were actually good against Aston Villa with Saka, Emil Smith-Rowe, Aubameyang and Lacazette all doing their bit to secure 3 points for Arsenal. Few observations from me. Ollie Watkins got booked within 60 seconds for absolutely ragdolling, I think it was Gabriel, to the ground, which was equal parts sort of amusing from a neutrals fan and fan perspective, and I guess would have been infuriating if you're a Villa fan watching your striker get booked within 60 seconds. Like I said at the top, Arsenal were actually very good in the first half. I thought they seemed to move the ball.
Arsenal were very good in the first half, but Villa was super poor. Like they just didn't come to play in that first half. And Arsenal, when they get their
just didn't want it.
They didn't want it. No, they were awful. They didn't have a shot on target or something. Like they were just crap. And Arsenal, took the opportunity to put foot on the throat a little bit. But I think Arsenal when the confidence is up and they're at home and they know the other teams on the ropes, they're quite good. It's just, they did come back against Crystal Palace as well. But go on, Tommy.
Yeah, but even then, like you mentioned, that they sort of had their foot on Villa's throat sort of for most of the game. But even still, there's still that sense that like they can't quite kill it off, and like Aubameyang missed a penalty, had a penalty saved, I should say, and
that's right.
Just really like they're almost on the cusp of making a hash of it, even when they're playing really well. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like there's still that sense that like things are going to go wrong and they're going to stuff it up somehow. So was good result, good performance. They didn't manage to keep a clean sheet either, so it would have been frustrating, I think, for Arteta. But also, I think the one final observation that I will say was that the Arsenal fans were singing "You're just a shit Aaron Ramsdale" to Martinez. I did find that was funny as well.
Bit harsh, given he saved a penalty, and So I think that's a little bit harsh. I think that could go down as one of the worst decisions ever to get rid of him.
And then paying I think it was close to 30 million for Ramsdale. Who some people rate him. I don't though.
I think he's just slightly better. He's a slight upgrade on Leno, but nothing to write home about.
It's a lot of money to spend on someone who's a slight upgrade on your existing player. Have caught a few sort of tidbits of people questioning why Dean Smith isn't under more pressure. Villa have had 3 wins, 1 draw, and 5 losses so far this year. They could drop as low as 16th at the end of this round. So, do you think Dean Smith should be under more pressure, or you think that this is just sort of par for the course after they sold Grealish?
No, I think they've spent a lot of money. They've spent all that Grealish money and brought in a fair few replacements. And they started off well. And, there were some genuine expectations that they'd be, challenging in the top half this season. So I think, looking at that record, it's pretty awful, actually. So,
I guess it is still quite early too, right? Like we're almost 10 games into the season. So by this point, you do get a pretty good feel for how a team is going to go. But at the same time, a team isn't locked into sort of that place on the table either. And I think Villa, you could see Buendia, Bailey, sort of come on in the next couple of months and help to turn things around a little bit at Villa. But I probably don't disagree that. Although I didn't predict that they would finish sort of just above the relegation places, but sort of safely out of them. It's not unsurprising that they are sort of floating around sort of that part of the table, though.
Yeah, I think they should be doing better, but as I said, it's early days, and I think if in the next few months, if they're still languishing in that, 12th, no, maybe 15th to 13th, 15th position, then yeah, questions are entitled to be asked.
Next up, Palace, they hosted Newcastle. Newcastle now are everyone's, if there's an opposite of a team that is everyone's second team, it's Newcastle at the moment. Obviously, after the Saudis took them over, everyone hates them. But this is a game that, to be honest, I wasn't particularly excited about. And then I watched the highlights today, and it actually looked like this game was a lot of fun. There was heaps of chances, and I think Benteke probably could have scored about 3 or 4 goals if he had have just been sort of a little bit off to the left or the right. But I mean, in true Benteke style, Callum Wilson scored a bicycle kick, which was just an absolute peach of a goal. And there was a disallowed goal, a disallowed winner late on in the game as well. And it just seemed like a fun game, which I just would not have expected to say that about Newcastle and Palace, even as little as 6 months ago when you had Steve Bruce and Roy Hodgson in the managerial hotspots at those two respective clubs.
And Palace not able to hang on to a lead again for the second time in 2 or a week or two, because they cocked up against Arsenal in the last minute. And this game, so they've dropped quite a few points. So just from winning positions, so
bit of a worry because I mean, like they're the opposite of Manchester United. Like Manchester United consistently going behind and then having to play catch up, and I guess it's a different sort of problem to be falling asleep late in games and conceding. So hopefully they're able to turn things around there, because obviously if they don't and they keep dropping points like this, then Patrick Vieira might find that he gets moved on. Leeds, they hosted Wolves in the third comeback of the night and this week. Wolves took a very early lead through Hwang Hee-chan, another goal for him. But it took Leeds over 90 minutes to open their account, giving them a 1-1 draw, and the two teams sharing the points. Anything else that you want to add from this one, mate?
No, I think Wolves would be pretty impressed with Hwang Hee-chan actually scoring quite a few goals, and they probably wouldn't have expected him to making such a decent impact, because he wasn't prolific
100%.
before a game.
Well, it's never really been prolific anyway. I think it was Jesse that said this last week on the pod, that like he's pretty much come out of nowhere, and all of a sudden he's gone to the highest level like even at RB Leipzig, I think it was. He wasn't very good there. Or sorry, he was good but not prolific. So great stuff for Wolves though, I guess.
Yeah.
Southampton in the final game, they hosted Burnley, 2-2 draw. A real seesawing battle between the two teams, all the points shared. Southampton's 2 goal scorers have a combined age of 38. Both are on loan from Chelsea, which is Broja and Livramento.
So I think Livramento was actually sold, I think, with a buyback. But I think
I think you might be right. Yep,
Broja's on loan, and there's all these. There's on the forums. There's all these. Can we get him back? But so he's on loan. So Livramento was sold because he wasn't going to get a game. But I think he's got a buyback.
Yeah, and I mean Livramento at only 18, he does look like he's going to be a Premier League quality player, and he may not be at Southampton, but he could end up going to another Premier League club if they really like the look of him. So that's very interesting, I guess, for him. And great for Southampton that they found themselves a good young player as well.
Mm-hmm.
Southampton probably got to be asking themselves what they had to do to get the win, though, with Livramento and Redmond. Livramento hit the post, and Redmond, he missed a tap in from about 3 inches off the line. So would be pretty disappointed, but Max Cornet got the 2 goals for Burnley, which I think that means he scored like 3-4 goals already for them this season. And I think considering he was signed as like a left back / left midfielder, he seems to be a really great signing for them. Next up, a couple of predictions or previews for the remaining matches of this game.
Big games, Tommy. Some big games.
Yeah, and look, I know a lot of people would say that West Ham versus Spurs is the biggest game of the round, but look, we are going to maybe be a little bit controversial, and we're going to be talking Manchester United versus Liverpool first. Um, After the performance, not only in the league but also in the Champions League recently, I think Ole's under a little bit of pressure. Ronaldo's really sort of turned up the pressure at Manchester United this season, and I think it sends the team into a really high pressure fixture such as this one against Liverpool. Obviously, there's local rivalries. There's a historic rivalry between these two teams, and it this is not going to be a quiet game where nothing happens. This is either going to be a game where Liverpool just absolutely blow them away and Manchester United just can't cope, and they really have sort of their pressing failures and organizational failures exposed, or Manchester United managed to sort of dig something out and Ronaldo scores a winner in the 97th minute, right? Like there's going to be no in between, where it's just a little bit dull and it turns out to be a 1-1 draw, like maybe what we've seen in the last couple of years. I think this is going to be one where you're just going to have to strap yourself in and see where it pans out. But what do you think, George?
I think Liverpool are probably 10 times better than Man U. So, I mean, I'm expecting Liverpool to beat them. I think Man U they're just not that good. Ollie's Ronaldo's got them out of trouble a few times, and they've got a lot of attacking talent. When Ollie just throws them all on, they're going to cause problems because he puts 5 strikers on, and they're smashing the ball forward. I think De Gea has actually been quite good for Man U this season. So I don't know where he went for 2 or 3 years, but I think he looks like he's back and a little bit better. And
It's the Jose De Gea from
so
last couple of years.
I mean, he saved them a little bit against Atalanta with a couple of big saves. I think Liverpool are just with Salah's form and the way Man U are conceding. I think Liverpool have the edge, and I'm expecting fireworks, to be honest, but I still think Liverpool will be too good.
Given that there's a bit of a pattern of Manchester United matches over the last probably 2 years that I've noticed, it's that Manchester United are terrible in the first half, concede goals for fun, but then in the final 30 minutes, and they showed this in the Champions League game against Atalanta, that they'll then be absolutely unplayable and will score 2, 3 or more goals in the second half and just be incredible. And you think, how are these two teams that you've just watched in those two respective halves, how are they the same team managed by the same manager? Because they're so different in just sort of the intensity, the ability and organization and just the desire as well. They come out in the second half and they look like they could beat any team in the world. But the problem is that they can only play like that for 30 minutes. So
the other thing is that they are playing at home today as well. So there's the Old Trafford.
With fans too.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah, look, I would not be at all surprised to see Liverpool go up 4-0 and then Manchester United to score 2 in the second half and it ends up finishing 4-2. It's going to be exciting, I think.
Yeah, agreed.
Next up, West Ham, they host Spurs, and for probably the first time in a long time, I think you'd have to say that West Ham are probably favourites for this. George, can you see Spurs winning?
Yes, I can see Spurs winning. They've been like they've showed some improvement over the last sort of month or so. So I think did they lose? They lost in the Euro. Did they lose? Let me double check that. But
the Europa Conference League.
Yeah, they did lose to Vitesse recently. But I think
yeah, mate, they've really improved lately.
Well, yeah, I mean, since losing to Arsenal, they've beaten Villa and Newcastle. So obviously two top performing clubs. But I think
dig up, stupid.
I should have checked the tape. But I think they're a chance. But I think West Ham are looking pretty solid.
Look, as much as I joke, I think you are right. I think we're far more likely to see the Spurs of I'm not even sure what Spurs to call them, but I think that now that Kane has sort of gotten out of his sort of early season funk, he is just an incredible player, and he can create, he can score and create out of nothing. So Kurt Zuma and Ogbono, they're going to have to really be at their best to stop him, and Son as well. So really, with those two players, they're always in with a shout. And West Ham haven't been as tight at the back as they probably would like. So it does bode to maybe, similar to sort of that Manchester United Liverpool dynamic I was describing before, we could see maybe a bit of a shootout here as well, with both teams scoring a few goals. You got a score prediction, mate?
I think it'll be Tottenham 2-1.
Tottenham 2-1. Interesting. All right, I'm going to say 2-2. I'm going to say 2-2. And finally, Brentford, they're going to be hosting Leicester, resurgent Leicester, versus this year's makes teams play bad, which used to be Sheffield United last year and in years past. But yeah, Leicester did have a good result midweek in the Europa League with Daka scoring 4 goals against who did they play? Against Spartak Moscow, and I think this has got the potential to be an interesting game as well. I would not be surprised though if a rested Jamie Vardy does pop up and is able to I guess make things a little bit interesting. I guess against Brentford as well. So
with the Iheanacho, Daka, Barnes being back, the pressure's not on Vardy as much, so he didn't have to do much midweek, and so he'll be fit and firing for this game. And I think Leicester are probably just too good for Brentford. Although Brentford are, I think it's fair to make parallels with Sheffield United because they're pretty solid in the first season anyway.
Yeah.
So they're pretty good, and they're always dangerous going forward as well. So they're solid and they're pretty good going forward.
Well, there was the big difference. There was the big difference, even in Sheffield United's first season in the Premier League, 3 years ago. Even then, they weren't prolific. They weren't creating many chances. They were just fortunately taking them. And then in the second season, they weren't creating many chances, and then they weren't scoring many either. So, it's Brentford. I think will they've shown that they are a threat going forward. They can be creative as well. So. Interesting signs for them. But look, to be honest, George, I'm going to jump straight in, and I can only see a Leicester victory here.
Yeah, I think Leicester are too good for Brentford. So
3-1, I'm predicting.
Nice. Yeah, I think Leicester 2-0 on this one.
Fair enough. All right, on to some Champions League and Europa League match day 3 next up. So first up, PSG, they played RB Leipzig. PSG dispatched them 3-2. The highlight from this one had to be RB Leipzig's social media account saying, "Oh, Neymar's out. Cool. Just got a handle. Checks notes. Messi and Mbappe." So, real spicy one there. And I guess shows how difficult it is for teams playing up against PSG in the Champions League. Next up, we mentioned Atleti. They played Liverpool in what was, I think, your moment of the week, George.
Yeah, it was. So,
I don't really have anything else to expand upon. I think you've already hit upon all the key points there, and it really was one of those just absolutely bonkers games. They don't come around all that often, especially in the Champions League as well, especially in the Champions League group stages as well.
I think, and also on this one, Tommy, on a lighter note, the Simeone watch, the whole game, the guy was just going insane and it just losing his marbles at everything. And I mean, they should have a Simeone cam, I think, going forward. And then at the end of the game, he just bolts down the tunnel to Jurgen Klopp's confusion. He didn't manage to shake his hand, but very, very, very entertaining.
I did throw out a little bit of bait in the group chat this week, George. I'm not sure if you saw it, about how there was a little bit of history between Jurgen Klopp and Simeone, and that there'd actually been an instance in March last year where Klopp had refused to shake his hands and shake his hand at the end of the game. I think they played in the round of 16 or round of 32 matchup then, and it wasn't because they weren't getting along. It was because in March last year it was sort of just after Project Restart, and no one was shaking hands because of COVID. But
just bumping elbows or whatever.
No one took the bait. So what can I do? Next up, Inter, they hosted Sheriff. Inter shot the Sheriff with a comfortable 3-1 win. This group is wide open now with Real Madrid and Sheriff on 6 points each. Inter on 4 points and Shakhtar, the other team, on 1 point. So, look, Sheriff were really lucky. Well, not lucky, but they were, I guess, a little bit fortunate to get the 6 points to this point. But it's going to be really difficult with those return fixtures to come if they want to get out of the group, and even to finish, I guess, in the third place position and end up in the Europa League.
Europa League, yeah. Definitely.
Ajax, they hosted Dortmund in probably what was the shock result of the round, with Ajax winning 4-0. Absolute mare for Dortmund.
Dortmund are having a lot of those, though. I think the Dortmund are a lot stronger going forward than they are defensively. So to see them concede 4.
I feel like nothing's changed there. Like I feel like that's just been Dortmund for years.
Their philosophy,
though, right?
Yeah.
Just terrible at the back.
Just terrible at that. But your man, Haller, just can't stop scoring, Tommie.
Yeah, man. He scored 13 goals for club and country in 14 appearances this season, which, I mean, there was a reason why I got his name on a West Ham kit a couple of years ago, because he is a player, right? Like you can tell he's good, but he does sort of need to be in the right environment. And I mean, the West Ham fans never really warmed to him, I think, and I think some of them thought that he was lazy and stuff like that. And yeah, anyway, just never really worked out. But there's quite some player there, and it seems like he's doing really well at Ajax at the moment. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Manchester United, they were the third big comeback of the week when they played against Atalanta. Atalanta absolutely battered them in the first half, and they were very good. And it looked like they could just absolutely steamroll Manchester United. But to their credit, they came back really strongly in the second half. Cristiano Ronaldo ended up scoring a third goal later on.
Classic header.
You're right. Just classic Cristiano Ronaldo. Clutch moment and late in the game against tired legs, and you'd think, Cristiano Ronaldo, he's 37, he's not going to be able to pop up and have those moments anymore, but he still manages to do it. So, but
on that though, Atalanta's whole defense was basically out for this game, and I think that one of their players did after scoring as well, one of the defenders. So got his name, but so. It papers over the cracks because Atalanta were really good going forward, as they usually are, but they're always susceptible to goals conceding, and they were a weakened side as well. So people need to remember that before they go too crazy over Man U's comeback.
Well, I guess that goes both ways, right? Like that Atalanta were incredible in the first half and made Manchester United look terrible. So. But that was a second string Atalanta side, right?
So defensively,
it cuts both ways, right? So I take your point though that you kind of got to take it with a bit of a grain of salt. But yeah, just the quintessential Manchester United performance under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, where they have 30 minutes where they're just exceptional and unplayable and garbage for 60 minutes. Next up, like I think we've already mentioned earlier, Chelsea hosted Malmo. Ended up finishing 4-0 in that one. Lukaku obviously sustained a big injury, though. He's likely to be out, I think, for about a month from memory, but that does include an international break in there as well. So I guess somewhat fortunate for Chelsea, but Lukaku he hasn't maybe set things alight quite how people might have expected. He hasn't been sort of as free scoring as people might have thought that he would be early on. So yeah, an injury like that can sort of continue to interrupt that integration there. So not great for Chelsea, but obviously things are still humming along pretty well. Even in the game that Lukaku did get injured, they scored 4, and then the game that he missed, they scored 7. So yeah, it's not all bad just now. And
the big man could do with a rest, Tommie. I think he's been smashed. Played a lot of football in Italy, played a lot of football in the Euros, and then basically moved to Chelsea and has played nearly every game. So could be good to give the big man a bit of a rest.
Mate, I can relate.
Yeah.
Anything else about the Chelsea performance against Malmo?
Nah, Malmo shit. They're just not. They're
Were they
just not.
worse than Norwich?
Yeah, they're the Norwich of the Champions League. They just were not at the races. Yeah, I
What's
mean, yeah.
what's the point of Malmo?
What's the point of Malmo? So yeah, pretty poor from the first minute. So
Fair enough. Any European drama aficionados will remember Malmo from the bridge. For anyone playing along at home. So, one final thing before we wrap things up, talking a little bit of Europa League. Interesting tidbit here was that so Celtic ended up playing on, I think it was
Tuesday night
Tuesday
afternoon,
night.
I think it was
Yeah, it
actually
was what 3:30 in the
3:30.
afternoon.
Yeah.
They played, and Leicester had to do the same on Wednesday as well. It was because Rangers also were playing in the Europa League, and Lokomotiv Moscow also had a game as well that they had to deconflict against as well. So, and it's they don't let two teams from the same city play on the same day in UEFA competition. So, interesting. It was one of those sort of today I learned moments, but
Yeah. Weird.
just weird. I was like, hang on, why is Celtic playing on Tuesday? It popped up on social media, and I thought, oh, this must be like a highlight from the weekend or something. And then I realized it was against the Hungarian side, Ferencváros, and I was like, hang on,
Ooh, nice pronunciation there, Tommy.
just rolled off the tongue. But look, Celtic did get a 2-0 victory against Ferencváros. And just Celtic coming along quite nicely. I did see one of the goals, the Japanese striker, his that counter attack was particularly tasty. I think we mentioned it earlier as well. Leicester City, Patson Daka got 4 second half goals against Spartak Moscow. That one ended up finishing 4-3. So great result for Leicester, and not often you get to see someone score 4 goals in a game. Finally, West Ham, they played Genk in London. 6 changes to the West Ham side that played Everton last weekend. But 3 goals, one for Dawson, Diop, and Bowen, gave West Ham a 3-0 win. So that's 3 wins, and they haven't conceded yet in the Europa League. So, look, the big question on everyone's lips is, can West Ham win the Europa League? And look, at this point, like the Europa League is very competitive. There's a lot of very good sides, and I have to say that this looked like probably the weakest of all the groups. So, I think there's plenty of West Ham fans getting very excited.
You don't know who's going to drop down. That's the real, because there's always one or two really really good teams that drop down. For various reasons, and then they turn their attention to winning the Europa League. So.
Exactly right. But if there's one very good, I don't know if it's brand new for this season, but if you top your group, you go straight through to the round of 16. If you come second in your group, you play against one of the teams who's dropped down from the Champions League in the round of 32.
Okay, cool.
So it's a little bit more like, I guess it's favoured towards the the Champions League teams who've dropped down. But like you say, if you win your group, that's you basically get a bye through to the round of 16, which is great. So you're only one win away from the quarterfinals, and once you get into like that knockout football, anything can happen really. Finally, a couple of mentions for Aussies in Europa League. Awal Mabil, he came on in injury time against Miloš Degenek's Red Star. I'm not going to try and do the proper Serbian pronunciation because I just don't know how to read it. So apologies there. But Miloš Degenek ended up playing 90 minutes, and that one ended up finishing as a 1-1 draw between Midtjylland and Red Star Belgrade. And finally, Matty Ryan's Real Sociedad played Storm Graz from Austria, and Matty Ryan didn't play at all. Sat on the bench for 90 minutes. So a little bit disappointing.
Sociedad flying though, so I think it's that old thing. It's hard to change a winning team, right?
Well, I think a lot of people were expecting that. Matty Ryan is an experienced goalkeeper. He probably would have been signed with a promise that he'll be playing in cup competitions or in the Europa League or something like that. But it just doesn't appear as though that's been the case. So a little bit disappointing, I guess, for Matty Ryan. And I know plenty of Socceroos fans will be, I guess, a little bit concerned as well about his lack of game time. So as it turns out, you are right. Real Sociedad are top right now. I had to confirm that is actually the case, and that I wasn't sorting the table by, I don't know, draws or something like that. Because it's just
on that, Tommy, that tonight actually we've touched on it. We've got your Man U Liverpool, you've got your Juventus Inter, and you've also got the Classico. So yeah,
spicy.
I probably won't be leaving the house this afternoon. So.
It is days like that when you must be so happy that you're over in Europe, because obviously it's Sunday night here, right? Like, if you've got work tomorrow morning, you just got no hope of watching any of that football. So, mate, very, very envious of you. So enjoy that for us. But look, that's going to have to wrap things up for the pod this week. Thanks for joining us on More Than a Game. Don't forget, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be doing our A-League season preview episode. That'll be dropping on the 14th of November, so mark that in your calendars. And look, keep your eyes peeled as well, because this week we could see the drop of the new A-League digital hub, which is sort of rumored to have A-League fantasy, A-League tipping, which is very, very exciting. So keep an eye out for that. Hopefully it drops this week, maybe next week. We'll see. But until then, enjoy the football.